Oh. Sorry, I'm a little rusty, everybody. Hello, my name is Nosa Rama, and I'm the newly appointed chair of the housing committee. And alongside me is my vice chair, Beverly Pavone, and committee members. We call this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. And Happy New Year, everyone. And so before we start the official stuff, we're gonna go into some ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat should not be used to discuss or pose questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record. Please keep your questions and comments brief and topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. And one person that most importantly is here that I neglected to mention is our district manager, Angel Muscane. So as I said, the meeting was called to order at 6:32 p.m. Angel, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Members, when I call your name, please answer present. Marie Charles. David Giordano. James Gray. Present. John Green. Christina Johnson.
Present.
James Kemp. Present. Wilfredo Lopez. Jessica Morris. Nelson Rama.
Present.
Beverly Malone.
Present.
Don Sanders. Loretta So. Kenny Vivas Vasquez.
Present.
And Jason Wu. We have 6 present.
We do not have quorum?
No.
Okay, so we will, in the interest of making quorum, we will delay the meeting and we will come back as soon as we have quorum. Know that by 6:45 p.m., if we don't have quorum, the meeting may be adjourned. Hello, everyone. We have reconvened the meeting at 6:40 p.m. We now have quorum. We will again do roll call. Thank you so much, Angel.
Marie Charles. David Giordano. David Giordano. David. He's there. James Gray.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I just got unmuted now. You got me, Angel?
John Green is absent. Christina Johnson.
Present.
James Kemp. Present. Wilfredo Lopez is absent. Jessica Morris is absent. Also Rama.
Present.
Beverly Pabone.
Present.
Don Sanders. Absent. Loretta So, I'll call her in a second. Candy Vivas Vasquez.
Here.
Jason Wu.
Here.
Loretta So's walking in. We have quorum.
So we have quorum. Okay. So with that, we have an agenda. Is there any issues with the agenda that anyone would like to discuss? If not, I'd like to move forward with the adoption of the agenda as written. Nothing to add, okay? Adoption of the minutes. Angel, were minutes given for this meeting? So no, there is no adoption of the minutes. We will look at minutes for the next meeting in February. And then announcements. So we are sitting at the table. You're welcome, honey. And so I'd like to formally introduce our chair of the board. His name is Adem Briha. Adem, would you like to say a few words?
No, when we're doing the business, if I have anything to bring up.
All right. And so we don't have any formal presentations. Are there any informational updates? Nope. Keep this moving right along. Okay, so our chair has sent an email, which was a very informative email. and he was discussing about committee goals for 2026. Now, I don't know how many people were on the committee, I wasn't, on the committee for 2025, when committee goals may have been discussed previous January. If there was anyone who was part of that, would they be so kind, Candy, to say a few words about the previous committee goals, so that we can maybe use that as a stepping stone to talk about committee goals for 2026?
But our goals, we were accomplishing were visiting different nature developments and seeing, the status of the conditions of these buildings and how we could be helpful. So a group of the members have gone out and visited, and then them also has reached out to some of the leaders and see if any of the, services were done or anything that they've encountered has been provided or, updated. Um, and I think that's one of the goals that we were, yeah, and also following up on any of the, whatever complaints or anything that we were doing with other private developments as well.
Thank you. Is there anything anyone would like to add before we start talking about potential goals?
Yeah, we did a walkthrough in Wagner houses and noticed that the sidewalks and the pathways through Wagner are really, really bad. So I've spoken to them about it, so I kind of am taking that on,
Okay.
right? So I did reach out to someone in NYCHA. Haven't heard back from them yet, but I will be following up on as to how and why we can get this fixed. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I happen to work next to 120th. I'm on that block, so I know
Mhm.
how bad it could be, so thank you for your advocacy, Loretta.
Yes, I'm in, Nigel House, Jackie Robinson, which has been
Right.
conversion to, PAC.
Mhm.
And so we did a walkthrough, Adem and some of the members that came to Jackie Robinson, spoke with the executive board and as well as attended a tenants meeting.
Okay.
And, one of the complaints in regards to this transfer was people were worried about security.
Right, okay.
Okay, and so Adem did a follow-up on it and spoke with one of the, property owners about that situation, and it has been kind of resolved now.
It has.
Cause they just converted in December 17th, so we're giving it time. And at one time, they said they were gonna just put cameras, but now we have a physical individual for security.
I sent them enough emails. We'll see now.
That is wonderful, and so you see, how important like advocacy can be, even though we don't, think about it at that time, or people describe the board as a body. But, this is very wonderful to hear. Chair Briha?
Well, just on the Wagner topic, and I won't take it from public safety, and I could be totally wrong, but I know when we went, they were talking about they don't have a traffic light, and now it's going in, and we talked to the tenant leader, I think it was Diane Lopez at the time, and I went to a public safety meeting off of that on behalf of housing and brought it up right at the beginning of a meeting. We started making noise about it. I think we got there to start bringing it up again, and now there's a traffic light there, and months before that we were hearing it couldn't happen. Now, I don't know if it was us or them or just the committee communicating, and whatever reason it was, we were talking about it, all of us, and now there's a traffic light. So, that's encouraging stuff too.
Absolutely. Anybody? Okay, so, with that said, I'm glad to hear about all the work that you've been doing, and I'm excited to join you as part of that work and have you guide me and let us talk about different things. So you started stuff in 2025. 2026, right? We have goals. If you analyze how stuff happened, right? The stuff that's been discussed, is there a particular strategy that you want us to think about? Any suggestions on how we should, moving forward, one, think about how we wanna advocate, but two, also think about the goals we wanna advocate for? Like, what do you think might be the pressing needs at this time for the housing committee? Christina?
I think the sidewalks around Wagner are very pressing. As we walk through, if you don't walk with your head down, you can seriously hurt yourself. And they have a lot of seniors there, so I know that it's very difficult for them, especially if they have a walker or what do you call it?
Wheelchair.
Thank you, a wheelchair.
So that might be, because we're gonna have a second discussion, starting to think about the statement district needs and what we might start thinking about advocating for. There are certain things that we know we should advocate for, like our schools and stuff like that, that will probably come out from a different committee.
Mhm.
But things like this regarding NYCHA and the externals and the internals, definitely would be something that we should consider, defining. In terms of how are you comfortable with the way the committee has set up the way it works, right? So for instance, there's discussions here, and from that, then you determine the plan of action. Is that how you want to continue doing that? Is there some way that you think that we should consider in doing our work for the next 6 months? Because we'll be from here, and then there'll probably be a break in July. Is there anybody that thinks that we're fine the way we are? Because if we are, I'm not gonna change a thing. It's been that.
I kind of think if each one of us kind of find something that they're passionate about in the neighborhood, and then bring it to the board and we discuss what it is, and then maybe that person or several people can work on that
Okay.
depending on what it is, so that we can actually see some progress and move forward.
Okay. Beverly?
And to piggyback on what Christine said, that would be very helpful because then we can get more work done because each one of us is, or a group of us is working with other things, specific goals or specific areas or buildings or whatever. And we spread the work, but we get more work done.
Mhm.
So that's a great idea. And I think we should also be able to have a work table as to who's doing what. So we can be able to follow up. If anybody else needs some help or something, they can be able to look at the work table, like, oh, I have an idea for that, and I can help you out with that. So we can work like that.
Candy?
I have been working with these families that are homeowners, they're senior homeowners. Like when they started, of course, they were all right, but now it's come to the point that they're seniors. And this is basically now neighborhood, although I'm doing one in Staten Island. But they've been like, they got caught up with predatory lending. And so it seems like the judge did the favor on behalf of the lender. And so the family still doesn't want, like they're trying to appeal and they're really, really looking for help. They're asking elected officials, they've got too many people, nothing's happened, and it's very disappointing that, recently they told me what was the outcome. And they paid lots of money for different attorneys, and it just didn't work out. And so I think that we need to check and see about the homeowners in our neighborhood, particularly the ones in East Harlem in the corridor of 106th Street. They've also been plagued that way with predatory lending at the time where, they were getting commercial loans, and then all of a sudden it's a balloon loan that is from 8% to 12%, unbeknownst to them, until they, got the bill, and then this is where the fight and the pushback has been starting. And I would like to see them come in and speak to us and see how we can be helpful. I don't know, I've sent them this way, and I don't, some people disappear, go away, then they come back, but this has been like, what, now where they gonna go? So that's an issue. And this is not a neighborhood.
I might have somebody that they can talk to about that.
Okay,
I'm looking.
so
Yeah.
call me tomorrow, because I take my work home sometimes, it's the people, it's the issues, You're not supposed to, but you can't help them.
Yeah. As I said, our development is under attack now.
Right.
So NYCHA, you are NYCHA property, but NYCHA's taking everything
Right.
already. So I just want us to know that we have someone to reach out to that can assist us if we have problems.
So that, because there's a pact in East Harlem, I know it's happening in other neighborhoods, but it'll be interesting to know how's that working out. Especially all the buildings that have been given to a lot of nonprofits in our community, how they're running it, and how's that working out coming from our residents, from our community. It's not just the management and the agencies themselves of the different entities and the funders, but mainly from you guys. 'Cause I don't agree with the path, but if that works for you guys,
Well,
we need to see
we just
and monitor, keep it monitor like what we do with the other buildings when they get out of the lottery.
Well, I remember years ago when PAC first became a thing, one of the things they would do is that they would go to a private developer, which would actually fix the apartments, right? Because Niger didn't have the money and the federal government disinvested and one thing they said at that time, which I don't know if is true, so it would be good to have people come in and really do an in-depth presentation, was that even though the private developer was doing the development, that NYCHA was still involved as on that top because they ultimately still own the building. And so if something was happening that was egregious, where people were just getting evicted a lot and they didn't find a way to work with the tenant, that they would be able to speak to the NYCHA person who's still like overseeing in a broader way. But that's something that we should find out more about, especially as more developments may opt to join that program, because we want to make sure that you do have a voice to reach out to, that it's not just the private developer or whoever's selected to develop, and then you have more concerns and there's no one to answer to. So that's good.
I also did a proposed doing a paperwork for a fillable scorecard for PAC. So we'll have the developer's name, the PAC partners, the dates.
So here, why don't you show it and pass this
So
around?
this was the one for PAC? Oh, I just sent it to you.
Yes, you just sent it.
Okay.
So while it seems like we're going a little off the topic, but we're really not, because we're setting up our goals. So this was something that Beverly will introduce to you. It's by no means finished, but it's a draft of something that she's thinking of, that she was working on, that she thought would help us as a committee and as a community to keep track of stuff.
Right, so what I was trying to do is, we gotta keep records. And so it's easier for us to follow up. If whoever started it's not here, someone else can pick it up, because they know they left on that. I had a paper regarding a scorecard for the PAC. And where it has the basic information of the developer, who's the address of the properties and stuff like that. Resident protection rights, and we score them by points. And we keep dates and stuff on them, what are they doing wrong, what are they doing right, and score it. Capital repair, so the topics was the resident protections, no displacement or construction, some information we had. Capital repairs and scope of work, security during construction, so I'm really happy to hear that the advocacy we've been doing for Jackie Robinson has paid off, where they actually put someone in there. And the other pages was the post-construction, security, site management, property management, quality, social services and community benefits, And we just told them up, like, give them 100, we scored, you know, for that developer. Cause we know we have some people that's not doing that well, that has packed buildings. And this way we're able to,
They keep giving them these buildings.
yeah, so this way we'll have our, like an air table or documents in community board, possession of what they're doing, who we can contact and everything else like that. So I'll pass this on and, I'll send it to everyone. And anything y'all wanna add to it or take away from it, you know, this way we can, you know, keep a copy of it. And also I did a thing because a lot of people was concerned about evictions and what the procedures were under that. So that was another, PAC rules for evictions and complaints ready, and what tenants' rights are, whose oversights, and just give us documents as to who we have to go to and stuff like that. So I'll pass these around. I can send it to everyone. You can send it to, you know, and y'all can work on it if anything else needs to be added to it, you know. It's almost like an air table, but documents within the community board, right? So we can keep everything, you know, right hand at our hands to like, oh, well, no, you weren't doing this on this date, here's the documentation.
So the highest score will be a
100.
bet, okay.
Right.
You know, but some places are, if you get 5, it's not good.
Right,
You give a
right.
1, so it depends, you know.
Right. And each developer, you know, has their own scores. And we can keep everybody separate, but we can see the whole thing together as all the packs. Because we have these scores on each individual ones.
You don't know the reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
So once we have these scores, they, how, so is this something you're gonna follow up on?
Well, when we see what area they are failing at,
Yeah.
just like they were failing with the security, we call them up. What are you doing? You know, people have been writing you, tenants that been coming to the community board, you know, you have to make some type of changes. But I think now with this new election, I think the community board has a little bit more to it, you know, especially when it comes to housing. Since they took that right away from the, somewhat from the council person. You know, everything has to come through us now, so, you know, we got a little bigger foot to stand on, I guess. Balance out everything.
So based on what Douglas working on in the discussion, it sounds like a committee goal is to work to refine the PAC, what do you call this one? The PAC, scorecard, PAC scorecard. And actually just making sure that, that we're as knowledgeable as of PAC as we should be. Some of us, like, I did do it, you know, many years ago, walkthrough from a PAC apartment, and while it became significant, it became somewhat a little bit smaller based on the construction work that needed to be done, because there was like a lot of rotting and stuff like that. The overall, the tenants were very happy that they actually had a better place to live. And so there was a lot of fear in terms of joining the program when they actually saw the reality and the fact that the developers could not just get away with evicting people because they felt, you know, that they had to actually work with the tenant to help reduce, you know, their arrears and things like that. It became a better place, both mentally and physically for them. But it would be good to make sure that that's also happening here, right? That, and that any concerns that we could address earlier based on a scorecard, that if someone comes in that they're gonna renovate, we can bring up areas of concern that's happened with other projects. So that sounds like that would be a goal? That's it? Okay. What about another goal?
Can I just add a little bit to
Jason?
the,
Absolutely,
to the
Jason.
nicer conversation?
Yes.
I think with the new administration, it'll be interesting to see what changes are made at NYCHA. And so, Mayor Mamdani has appointed a new head of HPD. Right. So that's exciting, promising. And also the city reopened the Office of Tenant Protection, which is led by Cia Weaver now, who used to be the organizer for Housing Justice for All. So I think it could be interesting to see what changes will come from NYCHA, who will potentially be the new CEO, what changes they might make. And then that may inform some of our advocacy and potential for collaboration, which oftentimes has not felt like was possible with an agency like NYCHA, but maybe that could look different in the months to come. And then the other thing is some of the oversight work that we're talking about could make sense for us to work with our city council members. And we'll have to see who gets appointed or assigned to the public housing committee. But maybe we can advocate that they do an oversight hearing on the status of that impact. Now that there's been a little bit more runtime to see how the program's actually been working. But maybe we can advocate if our city council members are not already doing that.
So then that's a goal.
Yeah.
So now, Jason, because you're the speaker of the group, you're gonna tell me, because I wrote it very scribbly, NYCHA changes, right?
Yeah.
Form advocacy, said oversight work, the city council's gonna appoint them. But how would you like to formalize
As a
that?
goal, that we push city council to hold an oversight hearing this year.
And forums. Housing forum. Since we
But
have new
that's another,
leadership,
that's another.
Yeah.
we have new leadership, we have a new mayor, it's based on housing, you know, affordability, although affordable is thrown there like it was luxury anyway, but it depends to define the levels of the affordable.
And I think like in the past when we've done forums, it sometimes can, it's not always clear who's listening, right? And so there's a
Gotta
lot
get
of
the
work that goes
targeted
into it, and so I
audiences.
think, I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling very hopeful that
Yeah,
in
me
this new
too.
administration, like maybe we can make sure, you know, send like someone from the mayor's office, and maybe that person will do more than just say hello. And announce events, but actually listen and actually try to work with us to change things, and so.
So is a goal a forum, and is it targeted to NYCHA? And if it is that something that we're gonna work on a specific month, let's say? So in other words, we're talking, right, this is the beginning of the administration. So, I'm excited to hear all the ideas, right? So let's say, Jason, in our advocacy work, we say, you know what? In the summertime, it may be a good idea to have a forum. It's given 6 months to the administration to come in and start doing stuff. So let's see about targeting something, let's say in June, July, May, right? And then if that's a goal, then I'll write that goal, because then eventually we'll plan, well, not eventually, we will look at who we can invite, right? We can create an email thread if that's easier. And then we can say, well, like you said, the mayor's office should be there, maybe someone from NYCHA, any leadership, just give me 1 second. Any leadership that we think we could target. So if we're thinking like that, then you don't have to give me an answer now, but is that a goal? Because we'll have from now to December 2026, right, to be this year.
I think that's a good goal, but I would wanna make sure the resident leaders are.
Sorry.
There's a half of that, it's in partnership, and that they want this to happen too.
So then would it be, could it be a goal where it would be a consideration of a forum based on buy-in from the resident leaders, a condition on that? Okay, so say it.
The goal is to do a forum.
Okay.
with required attendance at the mayor's office in NYCHA, on the condition that the NYCHA resident leaders support and want to partner to do this forum.
Question? Yes. Would that be for the NYCHA properties that's only in PAC or all of NYCHA properties?
It should be all because some of them, it's going by cycle, who's gonna be, whose turn it is for them to decide. But that's.
So yeah, maybe you could be more general, because then the oversight one seems to be more focused on the rad impact.
Okay.
So this one could be
Yeah, you know why?
more
Because
general nature.
the thing is that not everyone wants to buy in,
Yeah.
but if they're hearing from our neighbors saying, hey, this is working, or it's not working, then we have options, how we actually wanna stay. Do we wanna stay working with management and just focus and working with management and the superintendent and just keeping on like a regular, resident association, or convert it into a PAC? But how is that working? No,
So-
not just by the.
So maybe the forum, based on the length of the forum or how you want to do it, if you want to do it in 2 parts. Chair, I'll recognize you after I finish. Nothing says that you can't do general and specific, right? And based on, right, so the idea is that, we shouldn't make too many goals.
Yeah.
Right? Because we want to make sure that our goals are measurable and achievable. And some other words that you all know, but I can't think of right now. And so I think we got a good start, right? And so I just want you to think about, and not, you don't have to tell me now, right? Especially those who live and lived in NYCHA, right? That NYCHA is a unique place to live, in that it has so much promise and what it started to be, and when there was monies infused, it was a good place to live. And then with federal dollars not being infused and other things, and the city getting bogged down in contracts where they pay you $100 for a hammer, right? The tenants became the short-ended people of the state, and then it's our home. I'm a NYCHA girl. I grew up in Johnson and Lehman. So I know what NYCHA is. It's a place that you call home. It's a place where you raise your families. And sometimes it's a place that could be safe, and then sometimes it's a place that could be not so safe, right? So we need to think about that. And depending on what the form is, there may be opportunities for other committees to work with public safety, depending on what those like us. And then nothing says it has to be a 1-day forum, right? It could be a series, right? That could be something to work on in the future, right? If we all hear that, we'd like to see like an evolution of what we're doing, right? So that, let's say it's 4 things and you put them all together, it's really one major thing. Chair?
I think that's a great idea. I think in the meantime, because that's gonna take a little planning, we can reach out to those offices. I know they're busy transitioning in. At the same time, I'm pretty sure they'd be eager though to come, and we could start that relationship. Have people from that office come to this meeting. When we know they're coming and they're on the agenda, then we can make those tenant leaders aware and see if they could come, so they can kind of see what they're saying. And then we don't even have to pitch it to them. They'll be like, this is why we're doing this. And then we just build this relationship, right? It's like, now we're not just coming out of nowhere asking to do a forum. And then the last thing I'll say on that is, my approach, just to this committee and to all committees, is I'm happy to do whatever you guys need me to do and want me to do. But I want the committee chairs to be in contact with the relevant departments. I don't need to be the one. But what I would say, just if it helps, you guys get the contact, you say what you want to say, what the committee wants to say. If you want it, include me. I'll be happy to just always hit reply and go, yep, that's exactly right, sounds good, or whatever. Just, so those are just some ideas. So I can figure out with Angel who you guys should be contacting if you already know. and we'll put you all in touch and we can get it going, all right?
Well, I'm glad you said that, Chair, because I actually was thinking that you'd do it all. No,
No, I'm being selfish.
No, and so that's right, because oftentimes we forget that we all have something to say and we all have knowledge, and some of us are quieter than others, but we work just as hard. And so there's no reason to ever be quiet around the table with me. You can see I'm not shy about talking. And so, I look forward to everyone, right, putting forth an idea. Anything that's related to housing, and that could be part of the forum. You can even have, believe it or not, a know your rights part of that, because in relation to if someone should come knocking on your door, should you be opening it? You need a judicial warrant, and you know what I'm talking about, right? We're talking about immigrants that are really afraid in our community, and people that are citizens who are afraid in the community. And I'm not just talking about people who are legalized, I'm talking about people who are Puerto Ricans who are afraid that we're next, right? Or who's next on the agenda, right? And so, thinking about the housing that takes, precedent, right? And based on what we'll plan. But what else can we tie in, right? That's part of the overall housing thing, right? Safety, and what do you do and how do you safeguard your home? And I'm not talking about getting a shotgun. I'm talking about how do you do things that add value, right? How do we start holding if there's a way to hold the management offices accountable for not helping their residents even fill out a form where they have to find someone to come in, and Candy is shaking her head because we know what that's like when not-for-profits that have usually traditionally done this work are no longer around. And so other not-for-profits that work with housing help to do that work. Housing ambassadors help to do that work, and people that are the neighborhood preservation. In full disclosure, Candy has a neighborhood preservation company, and so do I. And so we know what it's like to how you apply for housing, how you do a housing connect, right, and things like that. So while we should start targeted, right, and get our feet wet with a few things and not overreach. But I want you to think about, what does actual housing mean to you? Like, what is that? And if you were looking for housing, what would be the steps that you would need to know? Because if you don't know those steps, I guarantee you someone else doesn't, right? And what resources are available for people who don't speak English, right? Besides an app. And why is Fairfax no longer in our community? And they have to go to West 125th Street, and they closed all the satellites, right? So people that will commute to go to interview for housing can no longer use Fairfax unless they go somewhere else to get their card. So it's like that, are we, I don't want us to go too far
I know
afield.
one more. Go ahead, Beverly. I know in the past we've talked about supportive housing and what our numbers were here in East Harlem. And I know at the last meeting, again, we did speak about trying to find a way to come up with some type of system to count them. But who do we write to? So I get some information on that too. Yeah.
I have a card, it's my fault, I'm been a little busy, but there's Angel, they were at land use, right? And Angel had actually asked them if they could give us, let's call it a citywide inventory of supportive housing.
Yes.
And what share of that is ours. And wasn't asked in any way other than just let us see it. Maybe we're wrong. A lot of people that have been saying we have too much, prove them wrong, or maybe we aren't wrong. And that doesn't mean we don't want more, whatever, it just gives us a better, I think, picture. So I'm gonna email that person, I have his card, it's actually on my nightstand, and I will include you guys on the email. And then just on the supportive housing, tomorrow, And we have to be careful how we do this. Angel, correct me if I'm wrong, like, we're allowed to have committee chairs meet and stuff, in here, not in the meeting. You just can't hit quorum on a committee, I believe, or is it a certain number of board members?
Can't be quorum.
That can't be quorum. So if you're putting different people from different committees, I don't think that counts. So it'll be chairs and vice chairs if they show up, but I think pretty much everybody's committed. For St. Francis, remember, they closed on it. They were gonna talk in the spring. They seemed willing to talk to us sooner. So it was proposed by members that we do an internal kind of discussion with human services, housing, and then, we tied in youth and education because we were just talking about possibly seeing if there could be supportive housing built for more families. So those three committees will have leadership hopefully here tomorrow at 5 p.m. to meet, to talk about that, so that then we can, I think then the next step is to do a walkthrough of one of their properties and then invite them back in. I don't know what the outcome will be, what's gonna happen to that table tomorrow, but I think the goal is if we could get somewhat united front, so that when we bring them back in, we're done debating each other, which is great, and then we can, just have that discussion with them. So there's just some of these loops that have to get closed, and so we're working towards that, and that's supportive housing as well, so. Oh, and then me and Angel have a call tomorrow, right? It's tomorrow? With an update on Timbali Terrace. So we're gonna find out more about that. And so, yeah, that's, and then, oh, sorry. You talked about, undocumented people and their fear of the housing and everything. We talked about this at the last meeting, with the leaked draft regulations from HUD about going after undocumenteds in public housing. I think I had mentioned, about, we do have a congressperson, and, that's one of my goals, is to get even him to show up and talk to the board. And I think we can start maybe with a letter to him, since he is our federal representative. Just asking him, to tell us directly. I mean, I'm pretty sure I understand what his position would be, but just have him come and share that with the board and tell us what he's doing and what he's doing to advocate for that. And maybe that's a way to start a relationship there, which I think could definitely be beneficial to us as a board.
So I don't know where it will fit anywhere, but one of the things is just keep it on our radar that the payments for the City Fest has not hit to some of the developments. And I've always had my reserve on this program only because of the bad taste we've had in the past with the Advantage program.
Oh, God.
And overnight, people stood without this program, and those vouchers became null and void. Those checks that were given 6 months in advance to the homeowners and the landlords, they were voided because they were no good anymore. And so that left the responsibility on the hands of the tenants, which is why a lot of people ended up going back to the shelter, or found themselves going into the shelter because they couldn't afford to pay the high rent. So today it was brought to my attention that that's, some people didn't get their vouchers in because the City Fest has delayed the payment. And to me, that's like an alarm right now. Like, it's just like, okay, this is gonna be spiraling. We need to find out they should let us know or send an email to the community board stating, hey, and the residents may be affected, but this is what's going on. Give us something, a heads up, so like that we know that, I feel the city should let the community boards know what's happening, especially when these fundings are gonna affect our community, because this is money pouring in to the community, and once it goes, it goes. But it affects how the resources for the residents, is a big impact. And we have a lot of people right now that are under a lot of financial constraints, and that's gonna be a big impact. And HRA takes forever to give you a one-shot deal, then imagine, So we have a lot of, I'm not saying that we gotta take on all these goals, like you said, it's a lot.
Right, so
but,
this wouldn't be a goal, but this is definitely a follow-up to the
radar,
work of the
yeah.
community, this committee. And so
With the
that's
city, what
something
they're
for
doing
us
with
to
that.
look at, and then definitely, I think something could, be sent from us, but from the chair itself, because the committee doing the work and coming up and crafting something, and then behind the weight of the chair, it makes a big difference because it shows that, it's not just a committee doing stuff like willy-nilly. It shows that it's been vetted and then it's been reviewed and it's been forwarded. And so it sounds like, there's a lot of good ideas at the table. Jason, I see it.
Just on the city reps piece, like, I'm not an expert on city reps, but I just wanna clarify, like, when because you referenced Advantage, that program was terminated under Bloomberg.
Right.
And so he explicitly dismantled that program, and so I don't want people to hear this on YouTube and then think that PEPS is being dismantled.
No, right. I'm not saying that it got dismantled, there's a delay.
That you're hearing about from
But
certain
we
towns
wanna make
or
sure
certain
that
boards.
it's not going to
So
escalate.
I just wanna clarify that that's a different thing that happened then, but I hear your concern. I'm hopeful under this new administration that they will fund thefts at the levels that it's supposed to, and there was, I believe city council had passed a law to expand the payment standard under thefts, right? And then under Adams, that was delayed. And then legal aid filed a lawsuit to challenge it. That is currently still pending. We have a new mayor now. We have a new head of corporation council, who was a few administrations back was the former head of legal aid. And so I'm hopeful that under this new administration, new leadership at corporation council, that maybe things will look different for the FEPS program in the pending lawsuit. And hopefully it'll be funded at the proper levels. And so to me, I'm actually very hopeful about what's gonna happen with FEPS. But to your point, I think to the extent that we're hearing about these issues in the community, people should, they can certainly bring it to the community board, but also not everything has to be something that we have to tackle. Like these kind of issues, we could also refer to other organizations and agencies. It could be legal aid, it could be other organizations. Jeremiah, he used to be the housing chair. He works at legal services. You can forward stuff to me.
Oh, he's not a volunteer anymore?
No, he's he's a I think legal director at legal services. Where you could refer stuff to me. I'm happy to run it through legal aid as well.
And so it sounds more now based on what you clarified, Jason, is that if we're gonna write anything ever in the future about this, that, I see Dennis smiling, that what we want is really just clarity. Like if we're talking about the 6-month window, when we're talking about potentially reforming that might be based on, we might do a panel, right? That might be part of that forum. And this might be a question like based on, if it's still uncertain, that it could be a question,
Right, that's why I'm throwing it there to monitor that.
So it sounds like, just to review, right, in my scribbled up notes, that we're talking about refining, right, because that's more a committee goal, it's a committee goal, which is what we're talking about. Refining the PAC scorecard, or at least learning, becoming more educated about it. Learning about what the projects are here and seeing how we can refine and send it around, get ideas from everyone on what they think. It could be converted to something Airtable, it could be an Excel spreadsheet initially for us to just see how it will, how it would look. And then Jason was bringing up about the NYCHA changes with the new personnel and how that may inform our advocacy, right? And then doing oversight work with the city council members or other electeds that can help us. And Beverly brought up a point that, the city council, based on what was voted in, has more of a limited role in certain things. And we have talked about in land use, making sure that we also bring in LC, things like that. And so I think that that's also a goal of, or should be considered a goal of ours as well, to work with our electeds and work with SBI. And we also can get SBI here and, a couple other things, which I'm not saying nothing, I'm just saying. Right? And so, and pushing, right, the city council people to come to an oversight, us creating an oversight hearing or figuring out how to do it regarding NYCHA, PAC, and RAD, right? And while we said we want to keep it general, we can also have that be specific, right? And it doesn't have to necessarily, an idea was, and you all will agree or not disagree, if we should have multiple forums or just one forum where you just say, you know what, for this year, we're having one forum, and this is what we're gonna do, right? And then we do that, and that's our test case, right? And then if it goes well, then we know that we can replicate some of it, like the good parts, into a 2 or more, based on what the committee thinks the trajectory of housing should be for the committee, right? Like what we're looking for. And Jason was making sure that the mayor's office attends any forums that we do. If we do something like that, the goal of the forum is to have the resident leaders come in and be part of that. So to have required attendance of the people that were appointed, and then having the tenant leaders here. As I mentioned about reaching out so that they're aware of what to the tenant leaders in the offices. That's a suggestion. And supportive housing, that we brought up supportive housing. That's citywide inventory, and then we talked about it as well. And we also spoke about, which is not part of our committee goals, but this is part of our committee work, the St. Francis Project by VOA.
No.
Not VOA. This is the different, this is.
That is St. Francis.
St. Francis, that's the Friars.
But VOA, you're right too, just
Yeah,
so you,
right.
because you brought it up.
Right.
They went to land use about this big proposal, and then there were being issues about the building they're running currently
Right.
for the veterans, the SRL. So Jason, the land use chair, we were working together. Now I'm out of that loop, but I've been connecting you guys. We're gonna set up a tour of their current property with land use and housing members. And once we have an idea of what the dates are, ask them to try to give us a couple. We'll get as many people there as we can to do that. And we could keep the night show walkthroughs if you guys are interested. Nina Saxon, I don't think she's the Carver
She's
president,
not.
but she's happy. I saw her today. She's happy to set one up. I think in the spirit of getting those leaders here, we continue to go out and show our face and reach out. You know.
I brought up the fact about NYCHA and safety, and depending on what it is, right? Physical and mental safety. And we talked about potentially writing to our congressman regarding the undocumented individuals and what he's doing, or to help this population. That could be us, all of us.
Yeah, especially in his district.
And then just in terms of keeping our eye on the ball, Candy mentioned city PEPs and the fact that right now it's not moving along as it should be, reimbursement. And so while that's part of our work, it's not specifically a goal, but that's listed there as well. So I think that we have discussed a lot today in terms of potential goals. Is there something specific, Jason?
Just to add, sorry,
No, don't be
before
sorry.
we move on, so also for the NYCHA goal, I think part of it is to advocate for increased funding to NYCHA, and I know maybe that sounds obvious, but I think that we say it, because I think the new administration is committed to affordable housing, but a lot of the conversation is focused on new development, which is important. But we don't want to forget about
Existing
housing, specifically public housing. So I think I just want to underscore
So
that.
preservation and the.
Yeah, and to increase the funding for NYCHA, specifically. And then, Candy, you had talked about homeownership earlier, and they're slightly different
the
concepts.
senior ones,
The predatory lending and other stuff, but we've talked historically a lot about like TIL and ANCP and TPT and some of the HDFC conversion programs, and I I think again, under this new administration, maybe there's more movement there's more opportunity to recommit to home ownership as a possible model for our community. Because in prior administrations, we didn't have that. There was no commitment, and if anything, they were looking to move people out of these programs, terminate these programs. So, and I also think like with the new administration, they're also looking at city-owned land as sites for affordable housing. So we want to make sure that we're not dismantling existing programs that we want to uplift and restore. In the service of other kinds of affordable housing, but that this remains a viable model for our community, in addition to the other good things that we want to see happen.
Chair?
Oh, and you're making an important distinction. I think everybody here knows it now, but I think for a long time, way back, people weren't exactly sure what the housing committee was doing versus land use. So that's exactly what this committee should be doing. Let land use worry about the new stuff, and we'll all worry about it at full board. But here is exactly right. We have to check each other and be like, we need the existing to be fixed as well. So thank you, Jason.
So that sounds also like part of a potential district needs ask, right? We're talking about advocating for increased funding for NYCHA, and then putting together, not tonight, we're putting together the reasons why and what holes we see. But, right, specifics. Also talking about advocating for home ownership in our community, right? And while we're not putting a dollar sign on it, we gotta think about the reason why, which you articulated well. I can't write that fast, but I'm gonna watch the video, right? And so that's important, right? About advocating for home ownership and city-owned land. Like right now, we have a community land trust in East Harlem. And that was started through Picture the Homeless, right? And so it's evolved from Picture the Homeless, and the land trust has 4 buildings. And I think one of them is on the west side. And they have a prospect of more, actually, through advocacy from the tenants. Not that the city is giving them more, but there are tenants that are living in distressed situations that are understanding the land trust model. And so that's something for us to become informed of in the future, right, about the land trust. And so it sounds like we had 2 discussions kind of in one, and that's not a bad thing, that's an awesome thing. James, you wanna say something? No? Either one of you wanna say something? Y'all can just like burst. All right, I'm gonna get you next time, over there. Wanna say anything?
Marie.
Marie, because I see you so quiet over there, and it's like I'm gonna bother her too.
Okay, so, one of the question I have in regards to this forum or the goal to have a forum, I'm wondering why are we only inviting the tenant leaders and not just, people who represent, not a tenant leader, but an actual.
No, so I'm glad you brought up that point, because if you thought that way, other people would think that way, right? So that's a good thing, thank you. We wanna make sure that the tenant leaders have buy-in, because oftentimes we have conversations about NYCHA, and the NYCHA experts, the tenants that live there, the residents that go through things, the ones that go to the office and get told they can't do things even though they try to make their quality of life better. Lots of times may not be consulted for their viewpoints and how they can get things maybe done or what their thoughts are.
Yeah.
So that one, we learn, and then we can advocate, but also we can see where we think like we can do this and then we really can't. So that's where we mentioned them having the buy-in. But nothing says that other people, and Jason, I think would be the first one to tell you, that other people who are involved should not be part of this. We should, and because of it being such a large circle, that's why I mentioned the possibility of maybe we have to think about it as a project in pieces and what goes better where, so that then you can better plan. Like, what's the most important parts immediately that should be addressed? Well, if it's packed and rag, right, and then that's the first piece, right? And then anything that can fall into there should be considered by the committee. And then moving forward, what else supplements the housing that we think adds value, right? And so that's a good point. And so this way we make sure that everyone understands that it's not just one voice or one group of voices that we're gonna hear.
Okay, and how about the NYCHA leadership? You know, who are these people? They need to step it up and show up.
Exactly.
So we can have all these meetings with the officials and, you know, our local officials and everything. I think they should be accountable for a lot of the things that's going on in NYCHA. So I think that's something we need to target. For some reason, when I hear from my observation is that you don't know, you know, they don't really show up for anything. So they should be accountable.
They're a huge bureaucracy that stands behind a bureaucracy. And
Yeah.
so, and then what ends up happening is because, and I'm speaking only for myself, people who are out there, there's a sense that people just go into NYCHA and just work and actually don't care about the value of the tenants. There's a sense that people who work there just go and make $1. And because leadership is sometimes very removed, they don't know what it's like to go there and see the rats going through your garbage can, or you breaking an ankle because you're stepping in a hole, or having the workers there be disrespectful to you because they get paid a salary and you're just a tenant. And it's okay for you to live there and the door is broken for months at end. And even if you know that some of the tenants do that, then at the very least, you need to come up with a different concept so that people feel safe, right? And so you're absolutely right. And I think that this community for the last few years have been trying to build bridges with leadership in different aspects to have them come in and sense our community and sense the need that we have for answers. And it's okay to say you don't have an answer. It's okay to say, you know what, my hands are crossed, right? Like, these are federal regulations and I can't do anything. And we don't give out the contracts, that's on me, and we can't do anything about it. And so I sense your frustration at the very least, right? Coming in and speaking to us about our frustration could be a little bit helpful to start bridging gaps.
Yeah, let's see. The other observation is you mentioned one forum. I feel like we probably gonna need multiple forums. Yeah, because one's not gonna be enough.
Right,
But I think
and then-
after one, there's gonna be something else. It's gonna be something else. It's
Housing
gonna
is not a
Pandora's
one-size-fits-all.
box.
Right.
Yeah.
And thinking locations, right? And thinking about the best reach and thinking of, is this something we wanna film? Is this, are there experts who can come in and film something as part of that, where we have them sign a release that we can put on, right, without it being a problem to copyright or anything like that, so that people can click somewhere, right, and they can find information, because people want to be heard, I'm grateful for everyone who's here, and I'm, particularly grateful because I know how hard Jason works at Legal Aid, and I remember how hard Jeremiah, works, and I know that it's not easy when you're hearing stories of a relative who's going through horrendous things, you know, and I wanna thank Adem, not because he's here, but because I've seen the difference in his advocacy in terms of walking through NYCHA and trying to get answers for our tenants, even if it's not the most positive experience, that he continues to advocate. I mean, he's here tonight. You better have been, you know. He's here
I
tonight.
told him I'm coming all the time.
Right.
I just won't talk anymore.
He's here tonight, and so I think everyone here has a resolution, is resolved to try to do the best we can with what we can advocate. Yes, Marie?
So I've been listening and writing.
Awesome.
So the other question I have is, what about the tenants? Are we going to collect anything? Maybe have the tenant leaders
We might be able to
come up
do a
with?
survey, maybe the
Yes.
tenant leaders, you know.
Mhm. I mean, I can get involved. Like
Oh,
I don't have to sit around and watch everyone do everything
Oh, no,
else.
we're all gonna get involved somehow.
Yeah, I wanna
or
get
another,
involved. I wanna
somehow or another.
go out
Yeah,
there.
I actually went on a walkthrough with Johnson Houses.
I was going to say about Johnson.
With them, and I couldn't believe what I saw.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really looking forward to doing some more walkthroughs.
Absolutely, and so, you know, with the Dem as the lead, we will be doing walkthroughs, and the reason I say that is because, sometimes the most powerful work we do is just be in the room, right? But we need to be in the room in a way that's sensitive, right? And so I'm just speaking from my experience, right? I remember when I was chair quite a few years ago, one of the things I resolved to do then was to make sure nobody knew I was the chair. And so, and that worked because I'm short, you know, just don't look like a chair. And then it was important for us to be involved in family days, right? Where people were actually celebrating their home with what limited resources they had, with whatever they went through, but they still found that connectivity that this is my home, no matter what anybody outside thinks of it. And you'd be surprised how just showing up somewhere makes a big difference, because it doesn't keep us removed from people, right? And I will tell you that there's a perception that the community board is full of people who are different than the person in NYCHA, than the person who has to take the kid to daycare, or the person who can't speak English. And that could be true for some of us, right? Like depending on background and stuff like that. But it's not true of all of us, right? We all have different needs, but we're all very similar in lots of things. And so you'd be surprised how people will open up. And I think that Jason can attest to that based on the kind of work he does. I think that all of us, based on the work we do. You know, Candy does people, trying to keep people from being evicted and managing, you know, she's a CEO of a housing company and building new stuff, and, you know, she's a busy little person. And so we just have to just try our best. If we try our best, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have the right answers. We don't have to know everything, right? But if we're willing to learn and we're willing to advocate, right? I think that, and showing that we're willing to market ourselves better, right? Because what we don't want is an event that we know is valuable and not have anyone show up.
Right.
Because then if that's the case, then do we try to do an in-person and then try to do a video one, right? Like, depending on what it is. And then do we work with the tenants and the resident leaders in another fashion, right? So if we're gonna plan something, then we gotta start thinking about when is that the best time to do it? How will we go about reaching people? And just starting from like now, if that makes sense, like, you know, like planning by February and stuff like that. Then you have a look on your face. You
Yeah.
can have that look, but
Because I was thinking about the NYCHA walkthroughs, right? And I'm thinking that a lot of it sounds good, but I don't think the results have been as much as they should be. And I'll take some accountability for that. And I don't like to say, I don't like to place blame in other places. It's very dependent on where you go and what tenant leaders you're dealing with. I will say, and I haven't really said it, but there have been instances where I literally gave them my number and said, send me a list of like the elderly, the people that are sick. You don't need to give me 200, and I will send every single one of them to Brian Honing's office. And I was like, in a very micro level, when people have done that, there's been some success. And I think, Marie, you touched on that. It's how do we get to the tenant sometimes, and how's that not going to be so overwhelming? And I just had an idea. I don't know how feasible it is. We have technology. There's things called QR codes now. There's nothing stopping us. They have bulletin boards, places where they put things up. We could do intake forms, no promises, no nothing. We could maybe start collecting our own data from tenants, how much they're willing to share with us, and we can determine what we'd want to do with that. We don't have to do it right away. These are just ideas to start. I think we got to push this board a little bit more into a new world too. There's a lot of ways to get to people and collect things, and it can happen a lot faster than you think if we do it right. So
I was even thinking about, I'm not really sure if that's gonna work, but even being there in person.
No, finish Marie. After Marie, I'm gonna recognize you, David, right after Marie. You're so patient and so sick. I appreciate you. And Marie.
Just being, as Adam was saying, how are we going to collect some of the information? Not everyone can use QR codes, like the elderly or people who speak, I don't know. So I was thinking, I'm not really sure how that's gonna work, but how we can be present, maybe with a laptop. I'm not really sure if that's legal, if we could do this and collect as much information as we can, even if they do not want to give us their last names for whatever reason. Something, along that line. I'm not really sure. Because there's not that many of us, but
Right, so it's something to think about, right?
Yeah.
Even making it, complaint day at the community
Yeah,
board,
exactly.
we're all here and
Advocacy.
Something like that.
But-
Yeah.
Don't we always have a table at events?
Yeah, and that would be a place also that we can
Yeah.
put stuff out. David? Hi, David. You went to bed?
Hi, all. Sorry, I'm homesick. Wish I could be there. But sometimes, just listening, to be an effective listener, and if you take the letters and listen and move them around, you get silent. So I've been sitting here silent and listen to really some great ideas. From, again, from the supporting housing and looking at maybe taking a proactive approach for the first time in our community about what are those needs, to looking at home ownership. But I think another good point is we should have a series of forums on the different things, such as, as people have been saying. But then additionally, as Jason was talking about affordable housing and this new administration, I think this is a real important time for us to maybe push the benefits of home ownership through Mitchell-Lama programs. There are different forms of Mitchell-Lama. It's helped create some generational wealth for my family as we sold the Mitchell-Lama and then divvied up the money, right? So I think there's other ways. My parents was making $3,000 between both of them in '67 when they went into a Mitchell-Lama, and it allowed us to live a life and to live affordable life. Let's say that. That I think really needs to be an opportunity to create more affordable housing through Mitchell-Lamas and home ownership programs, and everything else everybody said. I think breaking up into smaller groups to tackle these things, and making subcommittees within the task force. I mean, within the committee and all committees as well, because most of the work is great that gets done, but it really doesn't get done in this room here. This is where the ideas are spread and the brainstorming is done, but the real work comes behind the scenes. So count me in. I really would like to work on some of these things individually with a smaller group, and let's take it to the next level. And I hope to be there tomorrow. If not, I'm hoping that we can have it some kind of video, because I really think it's important to be there for as we look at the different way of approaching supportive housing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Feel better. So, with that said, are there any more ideas, or we talked a lot tonight about a lot of things, right? And so it comes down also to strategy, right, for accomplishing goals. So when I tasked the committee to just think about like the things that we've discussed and what are some best practices or things, the ideas that we can come up so that we can discuss it in the next meeting. In the next meeting, we may have a presentation, I'm not sure. If it is, then we have to, budget our time so that we can both have a presentation and questions that come up, but also just think about strategy, right? Because we're not an overly large committee, and we're not a small committee, we're a mighty committee. And so thinking about how, we will proceed, right? So we've had a lot of things discussed. Now, the new business was Beverly. She already touched on what she did. So that might be something we can follow up ideas for next time if we need to. And so is there anything anyone would like to bring up now based on what was discussed today? And if not, then I'm going to instruct our district manager, Angel Spain, to call the roll.
Nelson,
Yes,
I'd just
sir.
like to say one thing very quickly. I'm sorry, I didn't know somebody else. But I just want to thank Adem, who took over the committee a little over a year ago when it was unfortunately not doing well. And I think his work and leadership has really set a path for us to follow and to continue as a new group. So thank you, Adem, for your work as chair of the Housing Committee.
Well, Adem thinks that he's gone, but he's really still the chair.
Yeah,
Loretta?
I just wanted to say, tomorrow at Jackie Robinson, your resident association board is having a meeting with HAC at 2:00.
I don't wanna keep anyone here longer, but just since you brought that up, because if I knew sooner, I would have planned accordingly. You said there's security there. I know that, and they said there would be during the conversion. My question is, they've been saying no once the conversion is over. Have you heard anything differently, or have they said anything? That's been the thing I've been going back and forth on.
No, I haven't heard it.
Okay, so
That's what we got to.
I want to say, because am I wrong in saying you guys would want that on-site security moving forward, right? So that's, okay, so yes, I just want to be aware. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Who is the management company or the district? CNC?
Jason?
I have a quick update from follow-up to our last meeting regarding the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. So just
Yes,
to summarize, it was passed by New York City Council late December. Mayor Adams vetoed the bill. So now the council will need a 2/3 majority to override the veto. There's gonna be a rally tomorrow at 11 a.m. in front of City Hall to demand the council hold a vote. Just a quick update.
Thank you.
So, how about, just having as a resource, knowing, when there's a resident association meeting for all the residents? Like every month, like every last Thursday is usually Johnson's, resident association meeting religiously, unless there's a holiday or something happens, but it's always the last Thursday. There we have the PSA 5 come in and give their reports, if, just as a follow-up with all so like that, we'll know who's having a meeting, and we're available to just show up and give a presence that Community Board 11, it's around, we are the town hall of City Hall. So we should be able to have that resource, so we can all have that.
To piggyback on that, I was gonna ask about follow-up. Since the all these, the TAs have their meetings and stuff like that, is there any way we can have a portal where they can send us their minutes? So this way, if, you know, we can, if we can't attend them, we at least know what was discussed at the meetings.
But through the agenda.
Yeah, through their agenda.
Yeah, regular
yeah,
agendas.
they can
I don't know
send us-
about any, like I said, every development, functions different, because Christina's, she's a president as
Right,
well.
Right,
You know, so everyone functions differently.
right, exactly.
But it's always good for you to just show up, even if, I think that if, when we're having the executive board meetings, right, because there's an executive and advisory with management, that then someone from Community Board 11, you know, can, see how everyone functions, how is it working behind the scenes, so we can bring it out to the rest of the residents, you know, because it's a lot, it's work also, you know, behind all of that, right? So,
Yeah.
and, you know, so we have our ask with NYCHA, we wanna look at their budgets, see what's available, because the budgets, and I've been a stickler about it with, the new, chair that we have, president, and I'll make this quick, because I know we can't stay long, but one of the important things is that we wanna know what's being fixed and not fixed. The first thing they're always gonna say is, we don't got the money, but let's see your budget before you approve of that. We're supposed to know about it and
Yeah.
approve of it, you understand? That's not being said unless you now, the good thing is that NYCHA is actually giving, workshops for the residents and the leaders to attend, and they're usually by Zoom. So it's not like as though if you can't make it, you can still make it, because it's on Zoom. But the valuable information that they're trying to educate the residents, is to inform us how we can actually work hand in hand with management. So I don't know if that works like that with Pat, which is why we wanna see the difference from the ones that are still in the NYCHA program and, you know, in still living within NYCHA's, governance, and also working with Pat. How does that change? Does that, all of that changes, you know?
And that's
And that's
part of
what
our
we got.
forum.
That's what we're gonna find out.
Yeah, so forgive me for late speaking.
No, it's
I don't-
good, it's good.
I don't, but for
There's no
me,
such
I don't,
thing as a
I don't
late
speak.
here.
hold on, hear me out. I don't speak
Uh-huh.
until I've done everything in my head
Okay.
and knew what I was gonna say. But I was gonna pretty much say what you just said. We all know word of mouth isn't what it used to be. Word of mouth is in your hand, right? But you mentioned CNC. My grandmother didn't know anything about housing committee or too much. And they're dealing with an electricity bill that they're about to do, and it's CNC as well. So town halls, going to, when they have the community, when they have those people who don't have information in their hand and don't know what we do, we gotta get out there and see them, right? So exactly what you said, find out when they're having those community meetings or their board, like my grandmother's village, they have board meetings. And someone be there. And even the other thing, having a board for them to send what they're going through to us, and then we show up.
Yeah.
You know.
It's an
So-
idea.
Yeah, we need to know.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said that, James, about electricity.
Mhm.
And this is something I was gonna bring up to the chair of land use for many, many years. This has been going on. Where we think of affordable housing as affordable rents. And, right, and 30% of whatever. But what we don't realize is that a lot of people get priced out after they're in an affordable residence because the electricity bills are too high. And some of them, like for instance, I can think of an electrical company right now who gives electricity to affordable rent, but their rate is so high that it can become quite exorbitant. Where some people, you know, can opt to stay more in the dark because they're trying to keep their bills down. And I think that's something that the land use committee needs to, and it doesn't say anything about housing when we're vetting, you know. But I think that we forget electricity, you know, and a lot of people are having problems, especially those that are on disability. Not everyone has applied for Spree and Dream, and so they pay most of their rent burden. And the electricity is additional. And so So we started, I think we have a lot of good ideas. Thank you for,
And don't forget
For
that local
sharing.
97.
yeah, thank you for sharing. Think about, I would ask that you all think about what we discussed today and come with ideas or questions, right? If you have questions about what we talked about, we'll have more of an outline next month. As I say, it's possible that we may have a presentation. That's not to say that somebody didn't want to present today, but I wanted us to get acquainted and talk about what we thought should be based on the chair's recommendations of understanding our committee goals. And so if there's nothing else, Angel, this time I'm gonna get you to do roll call.
Marie Charles,
Present.
David Giordano,
Present, sorry.
James Gray. Present. John Green is absent. Christina Johnson.
Present.
James Kemp. Present. Fredo is absent. Jessica is absent. Nilsa.
Present?
Beverly Pavone.
Present.
Dawn Sanders is absent. Loretta So.
Present.
Candy Vasquez.
Yeah.
And Jason.
Thank you all for attending. This meeting is adjourned at 8:03 p.m. Thank you so much.